J.J. Abrams is one of the most successful directors in modern Hollywood, currently ranked as the 10th highest-grossing movie director of all time. His filmography has been a beautiful mix of massive box office hits and heavily criticized misfires.
It's more important that you go off and learn what to make movies about than how to make movies.
In this video, we're breaking down every movie directed by Abrams, examining the budgets, revenues, and the production stories behind them to see which ones became true blockbusters and which struggled to find their footing at the box office. Before stepping into the world of blockbuster filmmaking, J.J. Abrams had already established himself as one of television's most influential creative voices. By the early 2000s, he had created hit shows like Alias and Lost, and it was this reputation that caught the attention of Tom Cruise, who at the time was not only the star but also a producer of the Mission Impossible franchise. After the second film received mixed reviews for its over-the-top action and lack of story depth, Cruise was eager to bring fresh creative energy into the series. He personally approached Abrams, convinced that his talent for weaving espionage, character drama, and high-stakes action could reinvigorate the franchise. Despite having never directed a feature film before, Abrams agreed, making Mission Impossible 3 his directorial debut in 2006.
When I saw Alias, what you accomplished with Alias in one show, it's extraordinary.
Well, thank you.
It's great characters, great storytelling, incredible tension. That's what I wanted. That's what you do.
The film follows Ethan Hunt, played by Tom Cruise, as he attempts to live a quiet life away from espionage, but he's pulled back into action when his protege is captured, setting off a deadly conflict with one of the most ruthless villains in the series. Mission Impossible 3 was made on a budget of around $150 million and went on to gross over $398 million worldwide. While this was more than double of the production budget, some industry analysts considered this number very modest compared to other blockbusters of the time, especially given the marketing costs that pushed overall expenses higher. Still, the film was profitable, and, more importantly, it successfully rejuvenated the Mission Impossible brand, paving the way for future installments to soar financially. Critics gave the film a solid 73% approval score, highlighting Abrams' ability to bring emotional depth to Ethan Hunt's character and praising Hoffman's chilling performance as one of the series' most memorable villains. On the other hand, some critics argued that the story leaned too heavily on the typical spy thriller cliches and didn't fully break new ground for the genre. Still, the overall reception was positive, and Abrams' directorial debut proved he could handle the weight of a blockbuster. And with this success under his belt, Abrams was soon offered an even greater challenge. Star Trek is the story of a young rebellious man named Kirk, who joins a space organization called Starfleet. When a funny-looking alien bad guy named Nero attacks one planet and threatens to destroy another, Kirk must work with a brilliant bloke named Officer Spock to try and stop Nero from destroying the planet. Behind the scenes, Star Trek was a major gamble for Abrams. By the mid-2000s, the franchise had been struggling for years. The last film, called Nemesis, released in 2002, was a catastrophic disappointment, earning only $67 million against a budget of $60 million. Paramount wanted to revive the series for a modern audience, but they needed someone who could blend action, character, and spectacle, and that's where Abrams came in. Although he wasn't a lifelong fan of Star Trek, Abrams approached the project with fresh eyes, creating an alternate timeline that honored the original characters while giving him creative freedom to modernize the story. His goal was to make Star Trek accessible to both longtime fans and newcomers.
As someone who was never a fan of Star Trek, when I started working on the first Star Trek movie we did, I really approached it from a sort of moviegoer's perspective, which is, what do I want to see? What would make me excited? I had to do it in that genuine way and not in a, they'll love this, or the Trekkies will want that, because I don't know.
The movie was produced with a budget of about $150 million, covering high-tech visual effects, massive sets, and an ensemble cast of both established and new actors. At the box office, Star Trek earned over $385 million worldwide, making it a moderately successful release. While not a blockbuster by today's standards, the film likely generated additional revenue through home video sales, streaming rights, and merchandise, improving its overall profitability. Critically, the film was very well received, holding a 94% approval score, with many praising Abrams' energetic direction, the strong performance from Chris Pine, and the film's ability to balance action with humor and character development. However, some longtime fans noted that it leaned more toward blockbuster spectacle than the franchise's traditional philosophical themes, but overall, it was considered a triumphant revival. For Abrams' career, this success was invaluable. It wasn't just about the box office numbers. It was more about credibility and trust. Studios saw that he could handle a high-profile reboot, balance action with character development, and appeal to both longtime fans and new audiences. This newfound credibility positioned him for even bigger opportunities. After the success of Star Trek, Abrams wanted to return to a more personal story, and Super 8 was inspired by his love of classic 70s and 80s sci-fi and adventure films, particularly those that captured the wonder of childhood. Set in 1979, Super 8 tells the story of a group of kids who were filming a movie when they witnessed a mysterious train crash. Shortly thereafter, strange and unexplained events start happening in their town, and the children soon discover that a secret alien creature has escaped from the wreckage. This movie carries heavy echoes of Steven Spielberg's influence, with clear similarities to classics like E.T. and Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
It's an Amblin film, Super 8. It's a Steven Spielberg production, so there's, I felt actually free to embrace the way I felt those movies felt, and not. I probably would have been much more self-conscious had he not been a producer.
Super 8 was produced on a modest budget of $50 million, extremely modest when compared to some of J.J. Abrams' previous projects. Despite the smaller scale, the film earned over $260 million worldwide, returning more than 5 times its production cost. This made it not just profitable, but a significant financial success, demonstrating that Abrams could deliver a high-quality, commercially viable film without relying on an established franchise. These strong returns reinforced his reputation in Hollywood as a bankable director, showing studios that Abrams was not only capable of handling blockbuster-sized productions, but also smaller, original stories that could achieve both critical acclaim and impressive profitability. Super 8 currently holds an 81% critic rating, with many people praising its nostalgic homage to classic sci-fi, the strong performances from the young cast, and Abrams' ability to balance tension with heartfelt storytelling. Some critics noted that the plot occasionally relied on familiar sentimental tropes, but overall it was seen as a thrilling and emotionally engaging film that showcased Abrams' versatility as a director. And with his reputation rapidly soaring, Abrams went back into the world of massive blockbuster franchises. Star Trek Into Darkness follows Captain Kirk and the crew of the Enterprise as they hunt down a mysterious terrorist who has attacked Starfleet. Their mission leads them to discover that the man responsible is Dr. Strange, acting as a genetically engineered superhuman with his own hidden agenda. As Kirk struggles with leadership and sacrifice, the crew must face betrayal, moral dilemmas, and life-or-death choices that push them to their limits. After the breakout success of his 2009 reboot, J.J. Abrams returned to direct the sequel. Paramount was really banking on this guy to prove that Star Trek wasn't just a one-time revival, but a franchise that could stand shoulder to shoulder with other blockbuster giants. Into Darkness came with a massive budget of around $190 million, which was a huge leap compared to the average Star Trek movie before Abrams. Traditionally, earlier entries in the franchise had been made on much smaller budgets and earned more modest returns, catering mostly to die-hard fans. But Abrams' vision was different. He pushed Star Trek into blockbuster territory, with IMAX sequences, cutting-edge visual effects, and large-scale action that demanded top-dollar investment. At the box office, the film pulled in $467 million worldwide, more than doubling its production cost. While the profit margin wasn't as wide as some other CGI bonanza superhero films, this achievement was significant for this franchise. Factor in home video sales, merchandise, and streaming rights, and the long-tail profitability grows even stronger. What mattered most, however, was perception. Abrams had turned Star Trek from a niche sci-fi property into a global blockbuster brand. That shift in status carried enormous weight for both Paramount and Abrams' career. Critically, the film held a very impressive 84% approval score, with heavy praise directed at its stunning visuals, high-energy pacing, and the performances of the returning cast. With 2 successful Star Trek films under his belt, Abrams had proven he could handle large-scale sci-fi storytelling and transform established franchises into blockbuster events. And with that reputation, he was now handed the reins to the biggest cinematic universe of them all. The Force Awakens picks up 30 years after the events of Return of the Jedi. The galaxy is once again under threat, this time from the First Order, a military dictatorship rising from the ashes of the Empire. Bringing Star Wars back to the big screen was one of the most ambitious projects in Hollywood history. After Disney acquired Lucasfilm in 2012 for over $4 billion, they needed a director who could relaunch the saga for a new generation while satisfying decades of devoted fans. So J.J. Abrams was their obvious choice. He had already revitalized Star Trek and proven he could blend action, spectacle, and emotional storytelling. But the pressure was unlike anything he had faced before. Abrams was stepping into George Lucas's shadow, with fans and critics alike scrutinizing every decision. He worked alongside screenwriter Lawrence Kasdan, the mind behind Raiders of the Lost Ark, to ensure the story captured the spirit of the originals while introducing fresh characters.
Well, it was very important to Lawrence Kasdan, the co-writer, and Kathy Kennedy and myself, when we were working on the film, to tell a story that was an emotional story, and that was not just about spectacle and special effects and cool locations and characters, but was about a kind of relatable humanity and something.
Disney spared no expense with The Force Awakens, giving the film a massive budget of around $245 million. This covered not just production but also Abrams' insistence on practical effects, large set pieces, and the return to the tangible feel of the original trilogy, blending modern technology with old-school filmmaking. The gamble paid off in spectacular fashion. The Force Awakens shattered box office records, earning over $2 billion worldwide, making it the highest-grossing film of 2015 and, at the time, the third highest-grossing film of all time behind Avatar and Titanic. Even after deducting the production budget, marketing, and the share theaters take, Disney is estimated to have cleared well over $1 billion in pure profit. That doesn't even count the record-breaking merchandising sales, from toys to apparel, which dwarfed most other film-related product lines in history. Financially, The Force Awakens was a once-in-a-generation box office phenomenon and instantly re-established Star Wars as the crown jewel of Disney's billion-dollar franchises. Critically, The Force Awakens was embraced with exceptional reviews, earning a 93% approval score. Analysts praised Abrams for recapturing the magic of the original trilogy, highlighting its mix of practical effects, humor, and character-driven storytelling. However, obviously, not everyone was satisfied. Some critics and viewers argued the film relied too heavily on nostalgia, closely mirroring the plot of older Star Wars installment and offering very few surprises. Despite these criticisms, the film's combination of spectacle, emotion, and reverence for the source material made it a major triumph for Abrams, both financially and creatively. With The Force Awakens smashing records and reigniting global passion for Star Wars, Abrams had cemented himself as one of the most powerful directors in Hollywood. While he initially stepped away from the saga, the story wasn't finished, and when the franchise needed him most, Abrams would be called back to close out his Skywalker saga. The Rise of Skywalker was one of the most challenging productions in the entire Star Wars saga. After director Colin Trevorrow left the project due to creative differences, J. Abrams returned to close out the trilogy. He had the monumental task of not only following The Last Jedi, which deeply divided fans, but also delivering a satisfying conclusion to a 9-film saga that spanned over 4 decades. The sudden passing of Carrie Fisher also forced the filmmakers to rework the story, using previously unreleased footage to keep Princess Leia's presence alive in the film. This installment of Star Wars finds the galaxy threatened by the return of Emperor Palpatine, who secretly builds a vast fleet to reclaim power. Rey continues her Jedi training while grappling with her connection to Palpatine, and Kylo Ren struggles with his own destiny. This movie revolves around legacy, redemption, and identity, as Abrams' directing style leaned heavily on fast pacing, nostalgia, and spectacle. The Rise of Skywalker was by far one of the most expensive Star Wars films ever made, with a production budget of $400 million, and that's not including its enormous marketing campaign. Disney poured hundreds of millions more into global promotion, making it one of the most aggressively marketed blockbusters of the decade. At the box office, the film grossed over $1 billion worldwide. Now, at first glance, crossing the billion-dollar mark might seem like an undeniable triumph, and for most films it would be. But in this context, compared to The Force Awakens, which earned over $2 billion, The Rise of Skywalker underperformed expectations. Once you factor in production costs, marketing, and theater cuts, its net profits were slimmer than Disney likely anticipated. Still, bringing in over $1 billion ensured the film was profitable, especially once you account for merchandising, streaming rights, and home video sales. Yet it wasn't the runaway financial juggernaut that Disney hoped would close out the Skywalker saga on a historic high. The film received a very mixed critical response, with an approval score of 51%. While some praised Abrams for delivering visually stunning set pieces, emotional character moments, and a satisfying conclusion to the Skywalker saga, many critics and fans were disappointed. Common complaints focused on the rushed plot, over-reliance on nostalgia, and a sense that the film tried to resolve too many storylines at once. For many, this highlighted that even a director of Abrams' caliber still has room to grow. While he has proven he can revive franchises, and create blockbuster spectacles, audiences now expect him to take more creative risks, explore original stories, and push beyond the safe confines of established properties. In the end, J.J. Abrams' career is a tale of huge successes mixed with lukewarm receptions and lingering questions. He has obviously proven that he can revive franchises, deliver billion-dollar blockbusters, and capture the imagination of audiences worldwide. But with the Rise of Skywalker leaving fans divided, the pressure is now on Abrams to step away from the safety net of reboots and sequels, and finally prove himself with bold, original storytelling. Well, that's all for today. Let me know in the comments what your favorite film from J.J. Abrams is, and whether or not he should stick to massive franchises or take a risk on something new. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next one. Thank you so much for watching.